It's likely that the last great star within the featherweight from the Ultimate Fighting Championship was the great Jose Aldo, who dished out some good punches inside the octagon. Since his fall, we hadn't had another reference coming from Brazilian lands, at least until now. Today we're going to talk about a fighter who, armed with elite jiu-jitsu and boxing polished in Mexican lands, is leaving his mark in the octagon. And I have two reasons to do so.
Because I feel like it for both the left and right reasons.
Welcome the most Mexican Brazilian from the Ultimate Fighting Championship, Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes da Silva, born on December 30th, 1994, in Manaus, Brazil. He comes from a humble yet formidable family, with many trained in jiu-jitsu. One of his uncles is a coral belt. His father, brother, sister, and he himself are black belts in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I can only imagine how sibling disputes were settled in that family.
Come to me and meet your fate.
The protagonist's life was calm, filled with school, jiu-jitsu, and competitions. His entry into mixed martial arts was a coincidence. Lopes didn't consider fighting professionally. His older brother fought when Lopes was about to turn 18. One day, he just came up and said, "Get ready, you're fighting in a month." Our protagonist thought it was just another jiu-jitsu tournament, but his brother doused him with a cold water bucket, claiming it was a pro-mixed martial arts fight. At first, he was unsure how to do it without mixed martial arts training, but his brother applied old-school mixed martial arts logic. Knowing jiu-jitsu means you can fight. He assured that knowing jiu-jitsu, there was no issue in fighting. On September 8th, 2012, at the age of 17, he made his professional debut in the International Combat Tournament promotion. His opponent was Francivaldo Araujo, whom he knocked out in the second round, proving his fighting skills. Thus making a successful debut in mixed martial arts. After entering the fighting world, he adds 2 more wins, including a knockout. And finally, won by submission. It wasn't until his third fight that he achieved a submission, coming only from a pure jiu-jitsu background. But you know, don't get too confident, because when you're at your best, life is going to be there, boom, to kick you in the balls. Our protagonist suffers 2 consecutive losses, a split decision defeat to Diego Silva, followed by a knockout loss to Rodrigo Praya 5 months later. Shaken, but not sunk, he adds 4 more victories, where his ground-level skill stands out. By the way, 3 of his last fights had been in Sao Paulo, a city he arrived in with only a one-way ticket. He had been given the typical ultimatum usually given to young fighters: choose between studying or working. And he chose to pursue what was now his dream, to be a professional fighter and make a living from it, which are 2 different things.
True.
With a record of 7-2, he has the chance to go to Mexico, a country that, according to Diego himself, he didn't even know where it was, or what language they spoke.
What?
Damn it, Diego. In Mexico, he would continue his career fighting against Luis Torres, whom he mounts and lets a rain of punches fall, taking a knockout victory. His next victims, Paul Marquez and Carlos Canada, received a free jiu-jitsu lesson from our protagonist, thus adding 2 submissions to his record.
Not bad, not bad.
Around this time, he would meet who is undoubtedly like his brother Alessandro Costa, another Brazilian fighter based in Mexico, with whom he would form such a strong friendship that they ended up creating their own team, Brazilian Warriors. On April 21st, 2017, he clashes with Raul Najera, who loses in the first round. His next fight would be for the featherweight title of the Jasagi Combat League promoter, and his opponent, Isaac Ruelas, would be submitted with a rear naked choke in the first round. He would taste defeat again in Russia. In Kadyrov's promotion, the Pacific and not at all violent leader of Chechnya. In this fight, his opponent would be Amir El-Jurkaev, who takes the victory by knockout in the second round. He would return to Mexico to fight Antonio Hernandez for the Luchadores Extremos Latinoamericanos featherweight title. Showcasing his jiu-jitsu, he secured a first-round victory with an armbar. 2 months later, he swiftly defeats Rogelio Meneses, an opponent who takes more beatings than a struggling Chinese student, winning by knockout. After this, he enters the LUX Fight League promotion, one of the promotions that is serving as a breeding ground for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. He debuted in the promotion against Luis Guerrero, crushing him and submitting him with an armbar. Then he would have what was supposed to be a tough test. A fight against the former Ultimate Fighting Championship and fellow Brazilian Rony Jason, with whom he goes to a 3-round war. At the end of the fight, the judges unanimously decide in favor of our protagonist, raising his record to 16-3 and giving him the opportunity to fight for the featherweight title of said promoter. His opponent would be Alejandro Solano, with whom he goes into a violent 5-round battle. And after the final bell, Lopes took a unanimous decision, becoming the featherweight champion of LUX Combat League. Up until this point, Lopes had not defended any of the titles he had won, but this one he would defend on more than one occasion. Marco Beltran takes turns with the orthopedist after submitting to an armbar following his opponent's actions. Just over a year later, he would make his second defense against Masio Fullen, who would resist for 2 full rounds. But in the third, Diego would once again showcase his more than precious jiu-jitsu to submit his opponent with an armbar. His career and record earned him a chance to prove himself in Dana White's Contender Series. You know, the big brother of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, where Dana looks for talent for the company. The protagonist was close to joining the UFC, having proven his skills, but what could go wrong? His opponent in this test would be the also Brazilian Joe Anderson Brito, and certainly he made it difficult for Lopes. The thing is, in the third round, Brito almost gifted him a horn replacement by poking him in the eye. Lopes seemed unable to continue. No wonder, he nearly jabbed the optic nerve with that poke, son of a bitch. Rich! The thing is, they went to the cards, and even though Brito was deducted a point, he took a unanimous technical decision. But the bad news doesn't end there, as almost 2 months later, he gets back in a cage to fight for the featherweight title of the Fury Fighting Championship. His opponent, Nate Richardson, would give him a tough fight. And after 5 rounds, Richardson takes a split decision, handing another consecutive defeat to our protagonist. Fortunately, Lopes gets back on the winning track by dispatching Kenneth Glenn by technical knockout in the 3rd round. And then he repeats the dose with Angel Rodriguez in a match held in Mexico. The hope of reaching the Ultimate Fighting Championship was still on the horizon, but it certainly seemed like he would have to travel a longer stretch than expected. His friend Alessandro had managed to enter the Ultimate Fighting Championship, he had not, and no matter how much you rejoice in your friend's success, certainly seeing yourself a couple of steps behind can make you question what you're doing wrong or if you're really cut out for it. But life still had surprises in store for Lopes. One of the most entertaining fighters to watch, the supreme sniffer, Movsar Evloev, was going to fight with the psycho of the category, Bryce Mitchell, but Mitchell would withdraw from the fight due to an injury. With the fight on the verge of falling through, they look for an opponent who would accept the fight on 5 days' notice. And even though VOLKANOVSKI wanted to fight, the opportunity is given to Diego, who does not hesitate to accept it. Guys, only 5 days' notice to fight in the UFC against such a beast. He wasn't in camp, he wasn't expecting to fight soon, he was just going about his normal routine, and he was going to face the number 10 in the category. Of course, it wasn't the most favorable scenario. But Lopes would make it clear that he wasn't coming to the octagon to be just another fighter, going into an all-out war against the Russian. Near the end of the third round and in the midst of the fight, he remembered the wisest words ever spoken by anyone in history.
And battles, well, they aren't won until they're won.
After displaying excellent jiu-jitsu again, he applies an armbar to Evlov.
And they all are won in the last minute.
Honestly, I believe that with just one more minute, he would have submitted his opponent. Unfortunately, the Russian would take a unanimous decision.
Not all, but many, yes.
But the audience who saw the fight both live and on television, we got a pleasant surprise, the birth of a star. Let's remember that he did this with 5 days in advance. Diego left with the public's support and desire to see him fight again. And not only that, but he also took the fight of the night bonus. That is about $50,000, which is quite good, on top of the money he was already receiving for the fight. That is, it's an amount of money that would change many people's lives. 3 months later, he would return to the cage to give another demonstration of what good jiu-jitsu is, but adapted to mixed martial arts. And he submits the Canadian Gavin Tucker with a beautiful arm lever. This is how jiu-jitsu is used in mixed martial arts today, Crone Gracie.
Jerk!
The submission would earn him another performance of the night bonus. He returned to action in UFC 295 against Pat Sabatini, who did not receive a jiu-jitsu class but did boxing and ground and pound. His performance earned him another performance of the night bonus and increased his hype. One of Lopes' strengths is that he can submit you at will and also give you a tomography with his powerful punches, because despite not kicking much, his fists are like anvils. And his next opponent, the Nigerian Sodiq Yusuf, would discover this, who would be demolished in less than 2 minutes by our protagonist. And although this fight didn't leave any bonus, it did leave this patriarchal photograph. After defeating Yusuf, he was supposed to face Brian Ortega, but he would pull out of the fight 24 hours before it due to problems with the weight cut. Then Aige stepped in to save the fight, and both fighters delivered a good bout. After 15 minutes of action, Lopes took a unanimous decision. Nearly 3 months later, at UFC 306, he would ultimately face off against Ortega. And more than a fight, it was a damn beating, as Ortega took more hits than a punching bag. After 3 painful rounds, Lopes took the victory by unanimous decision. Our Brasicano was now in the top 5 of the category, and there was speculation about what his next fight would be. Perhaps a fight against VOLKANOVSKI for the interim title or a second match against Evloev, but a Shyamalan-worthy plot twist. Ilia Topuria, the category champion, vacates the title, pushing the mega bald guy to look for a new champion. Between Alexander Volkanovski, featured in a video on the channel, and our protagonist. Volka had lost twice to Islam Makhachev, trying to reach the lightweight belt, and had lost his featherweight crown to Topuria. And this opportunity meant returning to the top. And everything was going smoothly, until this happened at one of the press conferences before the fight.
It's not that I have a problem, but I don't agree.
And then this other thing happened.
Meanwhile,
according to the story, Pantera hates Lopes due to conflicts with a fighter friend and alleges that Diego and his team assaulted him. although many others say that it's just Pantera being an idiot who is dying of envy for Lopes' success. And as he behaved in a similar way with Ilia Topuria, well, I don't know, it makes you think. On April 12th, 2025, an experienced Alexander Volkanovski and a rising star like Diego Lopes step into the octagon for a date with history. And when it came to the fight, our protagonist and the fantastic bald guy quickly came out to try to impose their respective rhythms. And it must be said that both had gunpowder in their hands, although at the first opportunity, it could be seen that Volka's exploded better. However, a right from Lopes would send his opponent to the ground, and the fight could have almost ended there. But no.
No!
The third round was undoubtedly the most even, with Lopes pushing back the former champion, but Volka continued to respond with force. The fourth was practically a review of the third, but with Volka increasing his punches. And for the fifth, despite his attempts to provoke the former champion to exchange, he put on the marathoner's trunks and decided to opt for a more conservative style. He started running around the octagon and keeping his distance to secure the victory. Despite the final exchange of punches before the end of the fight, after 25 minutes of action, where either could have really knocked the other out, Alexander Volkanovski takes a unanimous decision, thus regaining the title and breaking the curse. That the former champion past the age of 35 can no longer regain the belt. Many held out hope that our protagonist would come out with the champion's belt, but unfortunately this time it was not possible. Volkanovski's experience prevailed. But I'm not worried, as I believe it's only a matter of time before he becomes champion. With a 26-7 record, he remains in this position of pure mixed martial arts victories for now. I must say that Diego is likely the fighter, or one of the fighters, with the best jiu-jitsu adapted to mixed martial arts in the UFC. And yes, beware, in the world, his ground game is something that is truly enjoyable. Because he really seeks to submit and is not shy about taking risks looking for different techniques, and that's why I give him 3 ICO fight points. While he lacks an official nickname, I have seen unofficial ones for him on social media. Some call him the emo fighter, emo king, the mullet warrior. All due to his haircut, technically a mullet, but from the front it resembles the typical emo style. Why deny it? There was even a campaign on Reddit to see how other fighters would look if they used his hairstyle. His rapid accomplishments at the company are truly impressive. He misses his shot at the contract, gets in last minute, loses his first game, but wins the crowd. And from there he hasn't stopped until he became the challenger and all this in less than 2 years. Few rises have been so epic. Proving that he truly lives under the motto he has tattooed on his chest, a motto that I also advise you to follow: dream, believe, and do what's possible.